Hello and welcome to the CX Files for the 15th of September 2022. My name is Mark Hillary and I'm in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Mark, great to talk to you. It's Peter Ryan speaking, usually in Montreal, but I am today in Las Vegas for the second full day of CX Outsourcers, the annual mindshare gathering of BPO professionals from around the world talking about all matters customer experience.
And I was hoping to be there with you. I know that we originally planned for me to be there, but at the moment I'm just finishing off a book for Penguin, the publisher. My co-author, Professor Sue Black from the UK, is actually here in Brazil with me, and we're spending a couple of days going through everything before we finally submit the manuscript. So it was kind of bad timing, but hopefully we're going to get this sent off, and you can all read our latest history book quite soon.
Well, I think everybody's looking forward to it. I know I certainly am. I'm finding more and more of my friends are publishing books. I'm starting to feel a little bit of FOMO, a little bit of fear of being left out.
Well, I think this is my 23rd. So if you want some advice, then I can always pitch in and tell you how to do it.
I'm feeling really, really insecure now. 23 books. My God. Well, congratulations. And I mean, congratulations to you and Sue. I think this is going to be a fantastic one. I've had an idea in mind for the past several years about writing a book on one of my favorite bands from the 1980s, the Thompson Twins. And maybe someday that will come to fruition. But for the meantime, enjoying Las Vegas and enjoying the great folks who've come to join us for the event. Mark, you certainly missed, but we'll be looking forward to seeing you at the event in 2023. Location to be announced very soon.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm looking forward to that, definitely. So why don't we talk about the location we're going to discuss this week, because it's somewhere that has been doing very, very well in your research over the past couple of years.
Exactly, Mark, exactly. So you're right. This is part two of a two-part series talking about different global CX delivery points. And today we are really fortunate to have had a discussion with our friend Ricardo Pedroza. Now, Ricardo is an executive with PROCOLOMBIA, the investment promotion agency that's a wing of the government of Colombia. And as you say, it's a destination that's done exceptionally well from the standpoint of bringing in some of the biggest names in customer experience management over the course of the past 10, 15 years. And over the discussion I have with Ricardo, we talk a little bit about what some of the reasons are for this. What's in the secret sauce that's made Colombia such a destination of choice? What are some of the key strengths that Colombia has been able to build on over the course of the past decade and a half to make it such a leading destination? And I think equally, it's important to recognize that ProColombia is very active in the United States, and they're planning an event on November 8th, running through to the 11th of November in Houston coming up, that is going to focus around international business matchmaking, and definitely going to be, I'd say, one of the more important CX and outsourcing related events happening in the States over the course of the coming several months. And there'll be more details about this in the interview. There'll be more details in the show notes, but really excited that we had the chance to chat with Ricardo for 15, 20 minutes and find out exactly what's happening in that country. Because as we say, it's certainly one of the Cinderella stories that we've observed in the BPO space the last several years.
Yeah, and I've been out there several times, and I think the last time I was there was as a guest of ProColombia, to go and look at what was going on and attend one of their conferences. And you can clearly see a good news story there. I think that a lot of people in the industry have been writing and commenting on the election earlier this year, which was only about 2 or 3 months ago. And concerned that the government may take a more leftist sort of direction. But I think that, clearly, even if you look at the agenda of Petro, the new president, he's focused on employment, job creation, economic development. So I don't think that there is that much fear. I think that actually, if you Google the news coming out of Colombia, there's a lot of people just talking about, what will happen, what may happen. Nearshore Americas did a big article putting 4 or 5 different possibilities about what might happen to BPO in Colombia. But the reality is, I think, any leader, regardless of their particular political angle, wants jobs and wants people paying taxes.
Yeah. And I think this is something that our listeners will hear in the discussion with Ricardo today. Something that I've observed is that over the course of my time, and Mark, you've been in this industry as long, if not longer than I have, you see different administrations come and go in different countries. And something I've been very, very aware of is just because a government happens to be right of center doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the be all and the end all for the BPO space. And just because a government happens to have a left of center orientation doesn't mean that it's going to be the end of the BPO space either. It all comes down to competence. It comes down to direction and making sure that the policy agenda is in place. It's balanced. And as you say, in the case of Colombia, it's very much, I think, a wait and see. So far, the messages that have been coming out of the government have been positive. The new administration has shown itself open to the BPO sector. And as Ricardo talks about in our chat today, there is really no reason to fear anything at this point. For all intents and purposes, everything looks like it's going to be moving in the right direction and almost a case of business as usual for the BPO space.
Well, I would certainly love to get back to Colombia sometime. There's some great brew pubs in Bogota. So anytime that we can get up there together to have a look, that would be great.
Yeah, I think a on the ground site visit is certainly something that is overdue. And now that the pandemic is hopefully behind us, we should get back. I seem to recall there were a couple of brew pubs in Bogota that yourself, myself, and a few other analysts had the chance to visit on a trip a few years ago. I'm sure that there are many more, and that we have many friends on the ground, not just in Bogota, but in some of the other communities that be more than willing to take us around and let us sample some of the wares from the different breweries in Colombia.
All right, cool. So why don't we go straight to the interview with Ricardo and then hear about what's going on in Colombia right now in 2022.
The CX Files is really excited this week to welcome our friend Richard Pedroza, who is the executive director for the US for the organization PROCOLOMBIA, who joins us today to talk a little bit about what's happening in the business services and BPO space in his country. So without further ado, Ricardo, welcome to the CX Files. Thanks for taking some time to join us this morning.
Oh, thank you for the invitation, and I'm really happy to be here today.
Maybe a good starting point would be if you could tell us, Ricardo, a little bit about PROCOLOMBIA and what it does.
Yes, sure. ProColombia is a government entity, an agency in charge of promoting Colombian exports. On the other side, to promote foreign direct investment into the country, and finally, to promote tourism. So we wake up every day thinking about those 3 topics. We have offices around the world in 22 countries, covering more than 30 markets. And we have presence here in the US and Canada and all around the Americas. In the US specifically, we are based in, most of us are based here in Miami, but we have half of the team spread around the country. So we have people like in Chicago, we have people in New York, in Washington, in Atlanta, in Texas, in Austin, and in LA. So we cover the US market from not only the local central office here in Miami, but also with the people on the field.
And the US is interesting context, in my opinion, Ricardo, because I know that it's become very much a major market for the services that are provided from Colombia. And you've talked about a few different sectors, but in terms of business services, the US has really emerged as, I would say, the major element of demand for services to be coming out of your country. And I think it's interesting when I look back at my time as a market analyst and advisor, the first opportunity I had to travel to Colombia was in 2008. And I've been very fortunate that up until the pandemic, I've been able to get back at least once a year, which has just been fantastic. It's one of my favorite places in the world. But one of the things that I noticed over that period was a major evolution in terms of not just the services that were being provided from Colombia for businesses maybe in the US or other parts of the world, but in Colombia itself. And I was really taken aback as I reflect on it at the rapid level of maturity Colombia was able to move into, going from what I would call a very nascent emerging market into one of the most established BPO services market in the world. And probably a good point of reference for us today would be to talk a little bit about why Colombia has become such a hub for the delivery of BPO or business services, especially for American clients.
Yes, let me give a little perspective on how it's evolving. On one side, the US is the major trading part for Colombia. So for us, it's natural to look at the US on the different sectors. We have had this year, we're celebrating the 200th anniversary of the diplomatic relationships. We have a long relationship with the US. And now we go back to what Colombia has to offer in services. And as you may know, the way Colombians are friendly. So we are very friendly, which allows us, it's natural for us to provide these type of services that are one-on-one. So we have been working as a country in terms of making sure probably three main topics. One of them is infrastructure. If you want to be in this business, you have to have strong infrastructure. So we have today, just to give you some examples, 11 working submarine cables. So we have a solid connection to the world. On the other side, we have internally a lot of deployment on people having access to internet and high quality internet. So that's key. And finally, on the infrastructure, we have very efficient cost effectiveness of the services. So that's one point that I think that's key in terms of the development what Colombia has done. I would say that the second one is obviously the infrastructure in terms of education. We have many universities. Just to give you an example, 4 Colombian universities are within the 20 best in Latin America. So we have a lot of people with good education, which is key in many types of businesses for BPO, like finance or administration or development, or to mention just some. So, and finally, the way the population is in terms of people, we have half of the population between 20 and 40 years. So there's a lot of talent in the sweet spot of working talent that is required, and they are educated. Let's say that also 10% of that economically active population speak English. So there's still also offers for English. And finally, so on one side, the infrastructure, on the other side, what we have in terms of bilingualism and education. And third, I would say talent. Today, we employ more than 700,000 people in this business. So it's key. So we have a huge group of people being here. A lot of new people want to work here, so they're preparing for that. And on the other side, the way the country is established gives us a competitive advantage. We have more than 12 cities with more than 500,000 inhabitants. So if you sum the talent, if you sum the infrastructure, if you sum that people are spread around the country, you can find very good talent in different places of the country without having to compete on one place for the same talent. So I would think that these three main topics, infrastructure, the education, and the other side, the talent availability, are three main topics that helped Colombia, plus the way that we are close to the US in terms of being in the past, having done business with the US.
Yeah, exactly. And I also think closeness from the standpoint of accessibility is very important too. One of the things I like about traveling to Colombia is it's not a long trip. And if you're a business services client, the reality is it's not going to be the same as if you're traveling to Southern Africa or into Asia, where it can take literally an entire day to get from point A to point B. In this case, from New York, it's less than 5 hours, the way the flights work nowadays. So that's really good. But let me say this, from the angle of the rapid growth we've seen in business service delivery into Colombia, especially from the States, obviously rapid growth can carry some challenges. what would you anticipate the biggest challenges that Colombia is going to be facing as it continues to expand as a location of choice for business services, whether it's back office or front office CX delivery, looking into the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, when you're successful, obviously the bar changes. So you have new challenges, and I would say the major challenge that we have is to continue working on people that speak English. Even though we have enough people, but as we have more demand, we have to invest, and we are doing it in terms of providing more people the capability to be bilingual. So that's one of the challenges we have. So we're working on that. We know that. But obviously, demand sometimes goes quicker than the offer. Sometimes doesn't go so quicker as demand. But there's something that we have to work on that. And I would say that thinking in other languages besides English. So I would think especially Portuguese and French. So that's very important for us to work on that on the population to make sure we have more people there. And secondly, I would say that even though the business is coming to Colombia, we could be even more proactive going out. So the companies just showing outside what they have to offer, because the people that know Colombia, they know what they can get, they know the benefits and the advantages. But the people that are not familiar with Colombia, they get surprised when they are exposed to it. So I think we have to be a little bit more proactive in terms of getting out of Colombia and not just waiting for the businesses to come.
Yeah, very true, very true. And just on that issue about other languages, I will say, having traveled to Colombia as a native French speaker myself, I will say that you are doing quite well. I found that the French spoken on the ground is very high quality, very international, and I think you've definitely got, as we say in French, un pas d'avant in that sense, perhaps compared to other countries in the region. So that's really good. And, we talk a little bit about the macro level operating environment that many organizations will be looking at in different countries across Latin America and potentially even around the world. And Ricardo, I'd like to bring up the fact that we know that you recently had a presidential election in Colombia, and there's been a lot of chatter I found in the business services industry about the direction that this new administration is going to take. Do you have any thoughts on what the clients in the United States of business services being delivered out of Colombia might be wanting to keep an eye on, and any thoughts on the direction the government is likely to take in terms of its approach to business services?
Yes, let me answer this question with several statements. But one of them is, in the case specifically of PROCOLOMBIA, we have been working for 30 years promoting Colombian exports and the services part 2. So we will continue doing that. So 30 years means that we have been through several governments, and the direction has been always to promote Colombian exports, and services is key. Second, I would like to emphasize that this industry is generating more than 700,000 jobs, and that's not something not to take into consideration. In quality jobs, and sometimes KPO very specific and very specialized jobs. So what the new administration is saying is they want to allow people. First of all, they want to promote Colombian non-traditional exports, and this is not a non-traditional export, so it fits within that direction. Second, the new administration wants to promote areas where jobs are created and where jobs are done. So other than services, it's difficult to find an industry that requires one-on-one job to move forward. And third, the new administration is looking for businesses that allow people to grow in terms of transfer of technology and knowledge. And if you move up in the chain, you will require some knowledge and you will require some transfer. So we feel very confident that this sector will be focused in terms of those directions. They fit within what the administration is saying, the new administration is saying. So I wouldn't think that there should be any real concern in terms, because it's adding value to what the new administration wants to move forward in terms of what they want to have in the country with the new businesses. Exports are key. and non-traditional exports are even more important. So it's within the sweet spot, I would say.
Well, I think that's really good feedback, and I think it's good reassurance for organizations that have put their faith in outsourcers based in Colombia over the course of the past decade or even longer, especially ones that have really been appreciative of the pro-business, pro-commerce, and pro-business services policies that successive administrations have taken over the course of the years. So really something to keep our eyes on, and certainly I think some good words of wisdom from you, especially as PROCOLOMBIA moves into what's looking to be like a fairly exciting event coming up in Houston. Can you talk a little bit about what that's going to entail and when it's going to be happening?
Yes. Part of the different tools that we have in order to promote the country are matchmaking events. We have been doing those events for at least 20 years. We do them every year in Colombia with thousands of companies and potential buyers and sellers coming together. And we are replicating this year this in the US. We do it one in Colombia and we do one overseas. We have been done these events in Europe, in Asia, and in Dubai was the last one. And now we are doing it here in the US. It's going to be in Houston. It's going to be on November from the 8th to the 11th. And we will have a specific focus on the BPO industry. So we are going to have there hundreds of companies promoting their products and services, and hundreds of companies looking for Colombian products and services coming together. And that's an event that is like a speed dating. So you register. Once you register, you see what you offer, or you just see what you wanna buy. Then you match them. The system matches them. Set meetings, and once those meetings are set, then you have 30 minutes. You just sit down as a buyer and wait 30 minutes. They come, they pitch you, the next one come. So it's a very, very well efficient way of getting exposed. And once you have the pitch of 30 minutes each, then you decide whom you want to drill down and to go with further conversations. And we will have an academic agenda in terms of the BPO sector parallel to it. So we'll be not only the matchmaking event, but also will be the academic agenda.
Fantastic, fantastic. So in your opinion, who's the ideal attendee? Who's the ideal executive who should be coming to this event in Houston?
The person in charge of deciding to increase or to look for new opportunities to run their outsourcing operations.
Awesome. And what's the best way to find out more about the event? How can individuals find out about the location, the logistics, etc.?
Yeah, they can write to the specialist on this of this sector, who is Camilo Osuna. So his email is cosuna@procolombia.co, not com, co,
not com, not ca, but
yeah,
co.
You can see in Twitter, in my Twitter, Ricardo Pedroza P, a lot of information regarding to that. And finally, to the Colombian website, PROCOLOMBIA, www.procolombia.co. So in these resources, they can get more specifics and more details about the event.
Well, fantastic. Ricardo Pedroza, it has been wonderful having you on the CX Files. Your first appearance, and I'm guessing it won't be your last either. We're looking forward to finding out more what's happening from the context of Colombian BPO delivery moving forward. As I say, it's really one of my favorite places in the world, not just from a business perspective, but also personally. And I always have a good time and have many, many friends I've developed over the years. We wish you well for the event, and we wish you well as the new administration takes hold in Colombia and continues to excel in the development of the BPO space.
Sure. Thank you so much for the invitation, Peter, and hoping to be here again to share more to what my country has to offer.
Thanks for listening to the CX Files podcast. We really appreciate your feedback and suggestions. You can reach myself, Mark Hillary, or Peter Ryan via LinkedIn. Please also leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast provider, as that helps more people to find us. As always, we'd like to thank Chris Haig at Traction Media for the CX Files graphics. See you next week.